Recently I had a discussion with my girlfriend about why, like most men, I'm not much of a fan of romance or love story films. The main reason is I hardly ever find them emotionally believable. A lot of the time the love flows too easily from the briefest early interaction, the characters are too pure, the physical appearances are too stereotyped, the music tries too hard to force a gushing emotion, they tend to look like shampoo commercials, and too often the movies involve a denial of reality. It may seem contradictory that I review a lot of movies that are unrealistic in their basic plots, science fiction and horror especially, but even with those genres, I still have a preference that human characters respond realistically to what they're experiencing. I don't believe in spiritual possession, but I do find the reactions of human characters in The Exorcist convincing. Same thing with Alien, The Thing, and lots of other classics. Fantasy plots, but with human realism. So with this issue of men's attitudes to love stories in mind, especially my own attitude, I just happened to be rewatching The Warriors recently with my daughter. It's her favourite movie and she wanted to see it again. Now, isn't that interesting? A girl who picks a perceived male juvenile action fantasy as her favourite film. Oh, and incidentally, her second favourite film, which is just as interesting, is Escape from Alcatraz. During this latest viewing of The Warriors, I found myself particularly interested in an aspect of the film that I'd hardly ever given much thought to before. The unusual and underplayed love story between lead characters Swan and Mercy. It's an aspect of the film that I've barely ever heard a word spoken about by critics or fans. It's not deeply hidden in the film, in many ways it's right there on the surface, but critics and audiences seem to have always been preoccupied with the gang members, the costumes, the hilarious dialogue, and the awesome soundtrack. I don't think I've ever heard a single discussion about the love story in this film. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to annoy everyone by making a video that brings the Warriors' love story to the forefront. If I can make some of you vomit in the process, then consider it part of your therapy. And some of you may respond with,
"What's the matter? You going faggot?"
And that's fine with me because
I learned from the get-go in the joint to get in touch with the soft, nurturing side of myself, the feminine side.
the love story runs deep in The Warriors and it's really well scripted. It defies most of the Hollywood love story conventions. In fact, it reverses several of them. By the end of this video, you'll no longer be able to watch The Warriors and just think, yeah, gang fights, real men! The film will still hold that appeal, but your feelings will be balanced with an appreciation for the film's softer, more delicate side. Warriors, come out the closet. Warriors, come out the closet. And if this bit of film analysis therapy fails, then at least you can have a good laugh at me for my efforts. Faggizations will be welcomed with open arms because I love you all, even those of you who consciously think you hate me. I look forward to the Reddit comments. Okay, now that you're all psychologically lubricated and ready for some real action, let's get down to it with a chronological study of one of the greatest love story films of all time, The Warriors. The female love interest doesn't make her first appearance until maybe a third of the way through the film, but even before that, The Warriors film sets up the uncomfortable attitude to women of its fictional gang members. First shot, we have the pink merry-go-round lights, an early suggestion that the Warriors are all gay. Sure, clearly that's garbage, but a subway train will be used as a sexual metaphor later on, and that's not a joke. There are virtually no women in the opening dialogue and title sequence. The Warriors are an all-male gang, as are all the other gangs that we see. There will be one female gang later which will open its own can of worms about gender relations in this film. But for now, we get shots of various gangs on their way to hear Cyrus's speech, during which we get the first clear instance of a woman on screen. This one being mocked and intimidated by a gang member, but possibly also, from his point of view, it's an unconscious expression of his sexual urges. A lot of male teen violence is driven by raging sexual hormones. Teenage sexual urges are off the charts and it can sometimes cross over into a tendency toward aggression. For example, the character Ajax in this film has the strongest urges toward both sex and violence, bordering into rape.
Maybe we'll get to waste a few heads along the way.
Show you how I play.
I like it rough.
Sure, the Warriors don't look like teens in this movie, but the themes are very teenage, and in the original novel, they were teenagers. At Cyrus's meeting, there must be near 1,000 people, but I don't see one girl among them, even though the Lizzie's gang try to take revenge on the Warriors later.
So you're the famous warriors, the guys that shot Cyrus.
After Cyrus is killed and the Warriors are blamed, the Warriors get attacked for the first time, but manage to escape on a train. And on the train here, there's two women in the background looking upon the Warriors like they're scared of them. They're the same women that we saw here in the title sequence. Both shots no doubt filmed during the same shooting session, but never mind the continuity error. What is important is it's two women, one young, one old, and both afraid of these young guys. What I'm getting at there is there's a general separation for this gang and the other gangs in the film between their masculine and feminine sides, and it shows in the almost total lack of women in the first third of the movie. Now don't worry, this isn't a gender rights activism video disguised as a film analysis. Personally, I consider masculinity and femininity to be equally important and productive elements of the human psyche. To favour one and deny the other is foolish for all kinds of reasons. And you may think I'm getting over-analytical about the gangs being out of touch with their soft feminine side, but check out this following scene. It's the Rogues gang who did kill Cyrus. Like real men, they steal candy right before the eyes of a newsstand worker who happens to be a small, young, innocent-looking girl. I like this because it shows the gang as being like prepubescent boys around the age of 10, the age when they feel uncomfortable around girls, so they become openly hostile to girls. And Luther gives a hilarious example of this.
Hey, what about the money you owe?
For what?
Now the Warriors encounter the Orphans gang, and this is where Swan's love interest will make her first appearance. The Orphans don't exactly look like tough guys, do they? I mean, I'm not even a gang member, and I could take down a handful of them on my own. They're really skinny. Terrible outfits as well. They're meant to look like fools, of course, but note that their leader has his thumbs pushing his jeans down like he's going to whip out his drumstick. Dave Grohl in an early role, that's what I like to call him. You know what, actually, I don't know who this actor is who plays this Dave Grohl type role, but he's pretty good in his line delivery, so, respect to him for that. It's a good little role he's got in this film. I don't even know if he was in any other films at all. So, Swan and the Fox negotiate a pass through this gang's neighbourhood to the train station. And then Mercy, the love interest, shows up, and she knows how to stir up a fight. She's the first woman we've had a good look at in the film, and the first one to have any dialogue. She's attractive and obviously has a sense of humour.
Cut it, Mercy.
Swan has his first look at her, and he's actually smiling, even though she's trying to stir up a gang fight. Smiling is something he hardly ever does in this film. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the first smile he gives. Up until now, and for most of the film, he'll have a stone-cold expression that gives away his deep unhappiness within the gang life culture. More about that later. Now let's just hold on this scene because there's some important background production information that needs to be established here. In the original script, Mercy was supposed to be a love interest for the character called the Fox, who was seen here and played by actor Thomas G. Waits. According to cast and crew reports, Waits and writer-director Walter Hill had a severe falling out while shooting this film, so Waits was either fired from his role or he quit. I can't recall which. If I remember correctly, it was the shooting of this scene that made Hill realise that actor Michael Beck had a much better screen chemistry with Deborah Van Valkenburg, who plays Mercy. So he rewrote much of the film so that they would have their own love story, and the Fox character was written out of the story consequentially. He has no dialogue after this scene, and he's then thrown onto a train track by a cop and killed. As well as being train banged here, a couple of years later, the same actor would suffer an even worse headache in another love story, John Carpenter's The Thing. So it's a couple of great little roles he had there. But Thomas Waits doesn't play the Fox in his death scene in The Warriors. Another actor has stood in, and so the camera avoids his face. This suggests to me that Waits refused to film the scene, or it was simply filmed without him knowing. I can understand him refusing if he did, as it's not what he signed up for, but the director has to do what's best for the film. In fact, Walter Hill did a surprisingly good job of smoothing out the changes to the story after already having shot much of it. If I remember rightly, This film was shot mostly chronologically, and I've noticed that a lot of movies turn out very good when they're shot chronologically. The changes in Swan and Mercy's story massively improves what was originally scripted. But also, having the Fox, one of the smarter of the Warriors characters, die in such a horrible way casts a deathly tone over the rest of the movie. It's like it sort of says to us, this isn't just a juvenile fantasy, someone has actually died quite brutally and at a young age, a tragic death. Something else interesting about the script changes is that Swan was originally supposed to get captured by one of the rival gangs. He's locked in the room and he manages to escape. And I never found that part of the script plausible. I was so glad it got cut out from the film. But according to Wikipedia, the gang who captured Swan were a gay gang, a male gay gang. But if it's true, then it adds an interesting sexual threat element to Swan's journey. On the subject of script changes, by the way, Vernon was supposed to get shot and killed by the female gang, the Lizzies, but Walter Hill thought that actor Terry Mikos brought good comedy value to the film, so he let the character live on until the end. Right, with production information out the way, let's get back to Mercy's introductory scene. Down she strolls like a cat to flirt with Swan directly. And lots of interesting stuff here. Most movie romances that I've seen involve a pretty princess who is down on her luck, but she's so pure that she never does anything bad or malicious to anyone. She just needs rescuing from whatever life situation she's stuck in. But this is totally different. Mercy is a troublemaker, a manipulator. She's good looking, but her clothes look cheap, she looks slutty, and that stairway is about as unglamorous a backdrop as you can get. Her presentation is a reversal of all those nicey nice but fakey fake angelic princess characters that we normally get in love stories. Immediately she comes onto Swan and her dialogue is quite interesting.
Those vests are real nice. Come on, give me one. Just one. I just want one vest. You can get another one, man.
By asking him for his vest, she's asking him to partially strip off, and that's a bit of a sexual invite. Wanting to wear his clothes, that suggests an intimate encounter, as well as a complimentary admiration for him. She's asking for his vest. It also reveals her motivation, that she wants to get away from the orphans gang and to go off with the Warriors, or more specifically, with Swan. She may not even consciously realise that yet. Though it's not communicated in the traditional love story manner, she seems to be drawn to him like a magnet. Sort of love at first sight, but done in a sleazy way. Asking him to remove his jacket would also interfere with his gang membership identity, and perhaps that's because she wants him all to herself. That will come into play later. And this line.
Come on, give me one.
I don't know about in America, but here in England that's a sexual invite, or at least it was when I was growing up here, and that was around about the time the film was released. Some of the dialogue here suggests that she is the girlfriend of orphan leader Dave Grohl, yet she is totally coming on to Warriors leader Swan in front of Grohl and a lot of other guys. Seems like she likes to hook up with the leader of whatever pack she's in. That's got a sting for Dave. Not just the girlfriend betrayal, but the embarrassment in front of all the other guys present. And she really rubs it in, but does so in an intelligent way that carries streetwise justification.
Are you just gonna let an army walk through here anytime they feel like it? How's that gonna look? Pretty soon every gang's just gonna boogie right in. Soldier right through.
I'll tell you.
What a man you are.
Something else here that differs from the usual love stories is that instead of coming across as a victim who has to be rescued, Mercy doesn't fear violence from men.
Mercy, stop looking for trouble now. Should have slapped your mouth the minute you opened it.
So who stopped you?
She may be a troublemaker, but she's independent-minded. She's her own person, not someone else's plaything. Her physical image is interesting too. Like I said, the clothes look cheap, but pink top for femininity. Her makeup is done quite nicely, and she has a heart locket hanging around from her neck. There's your love interest symbol right there. But I swear she has no bra on. So we've got this mix of traditional beauty and raw sex. I think Deborah Van Valkenburg is well picked for this role too. She's a good actress, but she also has the right look. She's attractive, but not in the total Hollywood goddess manner. She looks a lot more natural than that, and that's a compliment. The primary relationship of interest here is Swan and Mercy, but it's the Fox who steps up and insults her.
We are not gonna hide who we are just because some whore shakes her ass.
Don't call me no whore.
I think it was a good choice to have him say that. For Swan to say it would interfere too quickly with their initial chemistry. He will clash severely with her later on when they're alone, but for now the animal attraction between them needs to remain because it motivates what she does next, following the warriors on foot, or following him on foot. However, while it is the fox who speaks those lines of insult here, I think he is also voicing Swan's initial thoughts about her too. So they walk off and leave her standing there. As far as I can tell, the lines that she shouts across to them are dubbed in as an afterthought. Surprisingly, it fits in rather well.
Yeah, that's right, warriors. Just keep walking. Real tough mothers, ain't you? You guys don't show me much. Why don't you dickheads just walk all the way back home, huh?
I don't think those lines were needed, but it does give her a more antagonistic edge. Again, I like it because she's not presented as the harmless, angelically pure female love interest stereotype. She now looks very disappointed to see them go. Although she's played some head games here between the two gangs, she sees something in Swan that she really likes, but she doesn't know how to express it. I don't think it's just sexual attraction, it's something more. Strength of character would be my guess. I think she respects him even though she hasn't exactly shown it yet. It's a very good scene overall, carefully thought out, and I love the indirect expression of what we could call love at first sight being hidden behind surface defensive hostility. This definitely happens in real life. I mean, I've seen plenty of situations where a woman likes a guy and picks some sort of argument with him to try and draw his close attention, and it often does result in a kissing encounter, especially if they're drunk. I've been on the receiving end of that myself once or twice, and I've always found it amusing, frankly. So, she follows them alone in the middle of the night, quite a risk. She's like a lost puppy or a stray cat. She's looking for something, and I think what it is unconsciously goes beyond her attraction to Swan. She wants out of this neighbourhood that she lives in. She finds this place boring. She finds Dave Grohl and his gang of skinnies boring. She's so desperate for a change, she will welcome it, even if it's a gang fight, or maybe even getting roughed up by a bunch of guys she doesn't know. But consciously, she thinks that what she wants is another one-night stand, whether it's with Swan or possibly even with several of the gang, and regardless of whether it's indoors or outdoors. So Ajax grabs her and he's about to kiss her, but Swan stops him. Seems he wants her for himself. But like her, his true motives are unconscious. He presses against her like he's going to kiss her, and for the first time she speaks words of vulnerability.
You gonna jump me?
Funny enough, the word jump, that can be used to, you're going to jump someone as in beat them up, but sometimes the word jump refers to a sexual encounter as well. I don't know if that was the case in 1979, but it has been true since. It's almost like she's saying, be gentle with me. And Swan here gives his second smile of the film, probably the biggest smile he gives in the whole movie. And it happens while he's right up close to her. Now, in the original novel by Sol Yorick, which is very different to the film, there was no love interest from what I recall. Mercy is a character added by Walter Hill for the movie. But in the novel, there's an early chapter where the warriors, they either gangbang a prostitute or they rape a woman, I can't recall which. And I suppose that would have spoiled this film by making us lose near enough all identification with the warriors. But I always wondered whether the dialogue here suggests a possible beating or a gang rape.
Maybe we ought to pull a train on you. You look like you might even like it.
And her response is a bit more fiery than what we would expect of a typical movie love interest female.
Fuck you!
Real tough chick.
She hasn't got purity, but she's got something better. She's got character. Before anything else can happen, the orphans show up. And while the two gangs are staring at each other, Swan and Mercy have their first private up-close moment. Direct eye contact. What does that look in her eyes say? Is it love, fear, maybe both? He reaches down like he's going to molest her, but rips her dress for the Molotov. It's a good little indication of sexual tension developing between them. They escape and get onto the train, and here I think we have some shots that have been filmed without Thomas G. Waits as the fox. I think the actor running with Mercy is the same one who doubled for Waits in his death scene. He's holding her hand and his face is kept either out of shot or only shown from a distance. But when he runs onto the train with her, Swan swipes Mercy away from him, and the Thomas G. Waits lookalike actor runs where his face can't be seen. Swan hasn't actually decided to hook up with Mercy in a relationship, but he's certainly interested. Now, it seems corny that she would actually go off with these guys in the middle of the night to some unknown destination, but Walter Hill, who is my favourite dialogue writer on account of his ability to condense character statements for maximum efficiency, he justifies it very simply and turns the moment into a great bit of comedy.
And what about me?
So what about you?
It's like he's saying, well, you're one of our gang now, so you're going where we go. What did you think was going to happen, biatch? There's a bit of discontinuity regarding the love story in their next scene. Instead of being with Swan, Mercy is now sat with the fox, and Thomas G. Waits is seen in one of the shots, not someone doubling for him. Maybe the actor didn't know at this point his character was going to be killed off, but as far as I can tell, all the other shots of him running while holding her hand are a double. So Fox gets killed off and Mercy runs off on her own. She disappears from the movie for a little while as some of the others get into a fight with the Baseball Furies, and 3 more fall into a honey trap set by the Lizzies. Now, the Lizzies I find so fascinating, I'd love to have seen a movie just about them. What a great bunch of characters. They're not dressed in any obvious sexual manner, they dress cheap, and they're not Hollywood models. Like Mercy, they have a very natural, believable look. We'll come back to them shortly, being that they play a massive role in the film's gender relation themes, and so they have relevance to the love story between Swan and Mercy. But first we have another super important gender relation scene, Ajax getting caught in a honey trap set by the cops. The script for the film specifically depicted Ajax as having a tendency toward rape and sexual violence. He shows a bit of that in the film, but I like how it's balanced by the legally questionable entrapment element. It's not just him being the bad boy here, she massively encourages him.
You want to show me how you play with the chicks?
Yeah. Show you how I play.
And that wouldn't go down well if it was brought out in the courtroom, although the cops would almost certainly lie about it to get a conviction. A really interesting scene on account of its moral grey areas. I think this scene, along with the other warriors soon having a fight with the Lizzies, puts forth an important gender paradigm in the film. The warriors and gangs like them tend to trust each other like brothers. They each see their gang as a defence shield against the outside world, a defence against other gangs, against the authorities, and against a very different kind of threat: women. The gangs in this film, and usually in life to my knowledge, tend to be single gender. To have women in the Warriors gang would likely cause disruptions in their brotherly bonds, their sense of family. After all, the biological purpose of men and women being together is to start a new family. It's not that the Warriors hate women, but they seem to have a certain distrust for them, or more specifically, a distrust of their own ability to maintain their male bonds in the presence of women. Women are considered a temptation, a distraction, who should only be engaged on a superficial, casual sex basis. That's exactly what happens with the Lizzies gang. The warriors get distracted by the lure of an easy one-night stand when they're supposed to be meeting their buddies at Union Square Station. Though quite interestingly, the encounters the 2 of the warriors have where they make out with members of the Lizzies gang, they don't go off in a room by themselves to actually have sex, they just engage in the kissing and stuff. So this gang view of women as a threat to male bonding I think is near enough the same as it is in militaries all over the world. Gang members and soldiers exist to either fight off enemy groups or conduct territorial attacks. Winning the fight has to be the first and foremost thing in their minds, so the urge to hook up with an attractive woman and make babies has to be avoided. If there is to be a girlfriend, then the gang member or soldier's life with that woman has to be compartmentalised. It's kept separate from the all-male fighting clan. This isn't me going on a rant against males, by the way. I mean, the Lizzies themselves in this film are an all-female gang who seem to have their own gender hostility. At the same time, there's a neurological link between expression of sexual urges and expression of violent urges. One can easily substitute for the other, and it shows in the language. To fuck someone up means to beat them up. If you're a wimp who is easy to defeat in a fight, then you are a pussy, and so on. The Warriors film gets deeply into this view of women as a threat in the scenes of Ajax and these 3 falling for honey traps. This overall women can't be trusted gender perception setup in turn gives tension to the developing relationship between Swan and Mercy. Before the very important Lizzie's fight, Swan is, for the first time in the film, completely alone. This is after the Baseball Furies fight. The streets are empty and quiet. He looks vulnerable because in this circumstance he has no gang, no backup. He's just one everyday guy, vulnerable like anyone else. He's got a baseball bat for self-defense, but he's hesitant, keeping an eye out for gang threats, cop threats, or hopefully wanting to return to the safety of his buddies if he can spot them. He's reluctant to enter this train station alone, and the sounds of trains are a little bit ominous here. And then, while he's alone and vulnerable, Mercy shows up.
Hey, wait!
Swan comes off as very hostile here, but it's basically distrust. He immediately questions her overall motive.
Where's the fox?
Cop grabbed him.
So how come you hung around?
I don't know.
Interesting answer. Either she really likes him so much that she waited around alone at night on a train station in the hope that he'd show up, and she's just lied that she doesn't know why. Or she really doesn't consciously know why, in which case she has an unconscious attraction to him that she can't put into words. I think she knows full well that she wants to be with him. But Swan doesn't like this lack of explanation to his questions.
Where'd you get the coat?
You ask a lot of questions.
Don't give me that.
An unusual drop of his outer cool there. We now have another big deviation from standard movie love interest formula.
I stole it. Cops are looking for somebody in a pink top.
The female love interest is a thief. How original. There's a dialogue repetition here too.
Real tough chick.
Right, you said that before.
Fuck you!
Real tough chick.
What I like about that line is that it's a callback. They were up close and personal before, and neither we nor her knew what Swan was going to do next. But they were interrupted by the orphan gang wanting a fight. So now they're back in that same curiosity but uncertainty scenario, except this time there's no external gang threat. In fact, no other warriors to distract Swan at all. Being that it's just the two of them, the defences will start to drop from here on. Now one of them could just grab and kiss the other here, but Mercy plays her cards well. She wants to win his trust, so instead of going against his gang role, she supports him in finding his friends and getting home.
Now look, if you still want to get to Union Square, I can show you where to grab the train.
He doesn't need her help finding the right platform, but her gesture was appreciated, so he agrees to hang out with her.
Okay. Come on.
And the scene ends with something very funny. Swan pelvic thrusts her through the ticket turnstile.
Hey!
A sexual gesture maybe, or a little show of remaining hostility, maybe even both at once. I really like these little scenes between these two. They're so unconventional compared to other love stories. They avoid the usual tropes and go for a much more convincing presentation, and it gets even better later on. For now, a cop chases them, and they run off into the darkness of a train tunnel. This is where they'll really start getting to know each other. But before that, we have three other warriors having their own parallel relationship that is developing with the Lizzies. Cochise shows a little bit of sense.
Where's your dudes? Chicks like you always got dudes around.
But he stupidly falls for the answer.
They took the night off. Went up to the Bronx. Don't worry about them.
I don't think these girls have actually got boyfriends for reasons I'll outline shortly. But even if they did, for them to just pick up some random rival gang members for a party while their boyfriends are away in itself shows that they're liars and not trustworthy. But also there's the extreme risk that boyfriends could return during the night and would then definitely want to fight the warriors for messing with their women. God, that could have been a good scene, couldn't it? So the guys take a hell of a risk here, whichever way you look at it. Vernon then falls for the classic ego stroke tactic.
I mean, it's really great of you chicks taking us in like this.
Oh, sure, we know about you guys.
How'd you hear about us?
You know how it is. Word gets around.
Well, yeah, I guess we are pretty well known.
Uh-huh. Come on.
Young guys fall for that so easily. An underplayed aspect of all this that's really good is Rembrandt's resistance to the Lizzie's charms. Lizzie strokes him like a cat here, very sexy, but he resists. Among the film's fan base, it's been theorised that Rembrandt is gay. Walter Hill made allusions to this being the case in a 2017 interview. Although I'm 50-50 on that. In the interview, Hill was defending against a critical assertion by the interviewer about lack of homosexuality in his films. Not that it's even a requirement for films to have it, but you know how critical attitudes are these days. So Hill may have just said that about some of his characters to appease the interviewer. In my viewings of the film, I always perceived Rembrandt to be sexually inexperienced and less hormonal than the other guys, almost prepubescent in his outlook. But possibly in support of Hill's claim the character is gay, actor Marcelino Sanchez, who played Rembrandt, he died of AIDS in 1986 at the tragic age of 28. Poor kid. AIDS was tearing its way through the gay community back then. So anyway, back to the film. Meanwhile, Cochise and Vernon are getting their strings pulled big time. A gang of girls picks you up and takes you back to their place and then says, "Take your pick." That's too good to be true.
Oh, don't thank us, man. Just relax. Fall out. Take your pick.
I mean, who's to say that the one they pick will actually be attracted to them? Girls that easy would probably have a disease of some kind. That's another risk in this situation. By the way, I've never been able to decide if I was in this situation which of the girls I'd pick. I've always been torn between the leader, I think she's the leader, this dark-haired girl, or maybe the curly-headed blonde, the one who's seen dancing later, or the one who Cochise picks, or the cat lady who brushes by Rembrandt. Anyway, let me know in the comments section which one you'd pick. So from this honey trap setup, we cut to Swan dealing with a honey trap of his own, a different kind. Starting off, a train passes, and then we get a close-up of a red light switching to amber, but we don't see it switch to green. Amber is, of course, the state between stop and go, and perhaps symbolically in this scene represents the state between yes and no regarding what is going to happen between Swan and Mercy. I mean, really, why show that shot?
Can we stop for a minute? I'm sick of this crap. My legs are getting tired.
Come on, just keep walking.
Well, what's your hurry? Trying to set some kind of world record or something, huh?
She might just be wanting to stop so that she can try to have an intimate or sexual encounter, and her next move pretty much verifies that was her intention.
Hey.
Little pouting gestures to let him know she wants to kiss, but he doesn't trust her enough for that yet.
Just walk.
I'm walking.
This is a great scene for dialogue innuendos. Swan is certainly onto it.
What do you care about names so much for?
I like telling my friends I've been with somebody particular. You know what I mean?
Why don't you just tie a mattress to your back? You don't care where it is, do you?
Look, what do you got against me?
And note the sudden thematic red light. He's just given her the knockback, the stop sign. She asks to know why he's hostile to her, and as will become more clear toward the end of the scene, his answer involves an element of projection, his unhappiness about his own life as a gang member.
You want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I don't like the way you live. I keep hoping I'm going to run into something a little better.
Being that they both have a sort of hidden intelligence, she is straight onto his innuendo. He was basically calling her a slut, but she doesn't even deny it. She admits her promiscuity regardless of the insults.
I guess you like the way everything's going for you, huh?
Well, maybe I do. Friday nights are pretty good. Saturday nights are better.
I don't think you can remember who you get on Friday and Saturday night. I don't think you can remember what they look like.
Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. Who gives a damn?
And that is a very unusual attitude for a love interest character, and it strangely gives her a certain respectability. It's a rare level of sexual honesty in movies, and it continues with Walter Hill's trademark minimalist dialogue. Saying a lot with very few words, she explains the logic behind her promiscuity.
I see what's happening next door and down the block. Belly hanging down, 5 kids, cockroaches in the cupboard. I want something now. This is the life I got left. You know what I mean? You get a warrior, huh?
Ain't that the truth? People born in an extreme poverty background with few opportunities for the future, they do tend to take an attitude of, to hell with it, I'll just take whatever immediate enjoyment I can get from life. It's true of drug addicts, it's true sexually, and it's true of guys who join street gangs so that they can feel like they're part of something important. Swan doesn't respond here. She's just been completely honest with him and he knows it, so how can he argue? So she touches him intimately, and though we don't get to see any change in the train headlights, we do actually hear them change. The fact that he hasn't moved away or removed her hand, that's a signal of his willing, and she knows it. So, the typical first kiss scene, but very different in its framing to the usual love story. Two lost souls born in the slums, down on their luck, each with their own resulting behavioural problems, her promiscuity and his gang violence. Neither is better than the other, and neither of them are angels. The kiss was brief, but Swan cannot deny the sensual chemistry between them. He's probably wondering if there's more to it than merely the sexual, and she can see that he knows the chemistry is there, so they kiss again. This time they are framed by the classic train driving through a tunnel penetration metaphor, upping the thrill of the moment. Sex in a subway tunnel, that's where this encounter is headed. Or maybe that's what actually happened, and this is just a surrealist presentation of it. Swan is still unsure about her motives, and possibly his own. But note that his rejection of her offer to take things further is much more polite than his previous rejections.
Come on, what's wrong?
Let's just get to the next station, okay?
But Mercy appears to have a kind of sex addiction. If she'd just chilled out here and carried on walking with him, he might have felt okay about her. Instead, she does another thing that movie love interest females hardly ever do. She begs for sex.
Please. Come on. Come on.
From this, we get quite a revelation from Swan, who looks visibly upset.
You know, you're just part of everything that's happening tonight. And it's all bad.
He isn't just pissed off and emotionally divided about her. He feels the same way about the entire gang war culture he's caught up in. He realises that gang life is a delusion, just as he recognises that her efforts to achieve happiness through casual sex is a delusion. He's having a massive identity crisis, and the last thing he needs is a shallow sexual encounter. His final rejection of her in this scene, I think, is a defensive one.
Just go back to wherever it was you came from.
He knows they've got a powerful chemistry, but he only wants to pursue it if she is on the same path of lifestyle awakening that he's on. Both of them are pretty hurt by this encounter, but unlike the usual love stories, there's no exaggerated tears. The pain is held inside. It's a brilliant scene because it breaks so many love story conventions, and it feels all the more honest and real for it. No heartstring pulling violins, no music at all unless you count the sounds of passing trains as music. And the acting is constrained in accordance with their psychological defences. Excellent stuff. Okay folks, time for a commercial break here. For those of you who are not aware, over at my website, which is collativelearning.com, I've got a ton of videos and articles and audio files on film analysis and psychology and so on, which are available for digital download. And these are items that are mostly not available for free on YouTube or any other platform. And the items which are available to order are available on the film analysis page and here, which is the insight page. And that page, I'll just take you quickly to that. That page contains videos and articles and some audio files on psychology. There's a ton of psychology stuff there. There's stuff on video games. So say you wanted to make some orders and you were interested in the HR Giga one, you click View Product and you have a little read up, you check out the price, and if you like it, you say I want this, and the item jumps up in there into the corner, and you can stack items up there in the corner. Let's say you went back to my previous page and you went to the film analysis page, and say you wanted The Abyss. You click I want this, and you can see that the items are stacking up there in the corner. If you're ever bored with waiting around for me to post new content, because sometimes it takes me a few weeks between projects, then just head over to the site and place a few orders. And once you've picked the items that you want, and they've stacked up in the corner there, you click Pay. And you can select to use your credit card or PayPal It's all secure. I've been using this selling system for many years now, and there's never been a problem with people's personal data being breached or anything like that. And if there's ever a difficulty with the order, you can contact me very easily. There's a short video explaining how to place the orders and a little bit of a write-up here about it as well. Okay, so if you're interested in that stuff, then head over to my website, which is collativelearning.com. And now back to the video. In parallel with Swan and Mercy falling out and him sort of dodging a honey trap, 3 more warriors now have their own much more extreme honey traps falling out with the Lizzies. The 2 girls dancing is clearly more than friendship. They're lesbians, or at least bisexual, and possibly the whole gang are lesbians. Rembrandt, who is perceived by many fans as gay, seems to be the only one able to detect this. He's so distrusting he turns his back on this girl, not even giving the courtesy of a verbal answer.
Hey little man, you wanna dance?
The girl herself is interesting. That sleazy expression on her face along with the black hair makes her look like a vampire. The hair tied back makes her lack femininity. I noticed that there's a little scar near her mouth, and I was never able to see that until I saw this film in HD. Is that a makeup effect to give her a battle-scarred look? Or was that an actress who was just chosen because she already had that scar? It's one of many details in this film that were quite interesting but weren't visible in the old VHS and DVD copies. So the Lezzies suddenly reveal their true colours, and we get one of the most intense gender conflict sequences in film history. It's a hilariously over-the-top depiction of polarised gender paranoia. The shot of Cochise kissing a girl and her flicking a switchblade right before his eyes is brilliant. But also note that interracial kissing was much more rare in movies back then. And how many movies have women trying to shoot and stab men? How many movies have a guy smash a chair over a knife-wielding woman's head? The scene is wild, one of the best in the film. So in this section of the film, near enough all of the warriors have encountered some sort of gender conflict. And now back to Swan. He's had a long walk all on his own, and no doubt he's done a fair bit of thinking, but Mercy hasn't given up on him. She shows up at the warriors' rendezvous point, but at the moment it's just Swan and her.
See that dude over there with the skates? He's after you. And he's got some guys with him.
I know they're on my ass.
The dialogue here might superficially seem a bit pointless, but I think basically it's about her expressing concern for his well-being, wanting to look out for him. And that's a nice change from just wanting casual throwaway sex in a tunnel. He's also had time to consider the very honest reasons she gave for her promiscuity. In his usual minimalist manner, he basically invites her to hook up with him again and see how it goes.
Come on.
You should change your mind fast.
I was kind of rough on you back there.
He didn't change his mind fast. He thought long and hard about their conversation, and likely came to realise that the 2 of them are mutual victims of their poverty backgrounds. His gang fight activities and her promiscuity. They're just parallel ways that each cope with their circumstances. Fights for thrills and sex for thrills, both of which are intensely physical. And she also says something that again separates her from the usual I need rescuing female love interest.
I was kind of rough on you back there.
Oh, listen, I can take care of myself.
Sure, come on.
Weird bit of dialogue here.
Wait a minute. I can't go in there. It's a men's room.
Are you kidding?
I guess that's another kind of statement of, hey girl, you're one of the boys now, you're one of our gang. So, fight on again. Mercy hides in a cubicle with Swan, of course, and he's looking out for her in the fight. She's cheering them all on, and she even joins in the fight a little bit. Next, they're all on their final part of the train journey home. Mercy is asleep or resting her eyes, meditating maybe, but Swan looks deep in thought. I think he's considering his entire life situation, including his membership of the Warriors gang and his developing relationship with Mercy. The rest of the Warriors speak their emerging awareness of the delusions of gang life, and we could think of that as a reflection of Swan's own thoughts.
Big Cyrus. He was gonna run the whole city. What crap that was.
Now we get one of the film's most surrealist or symbolic moments. 2 overly dressed couples get on the train and sit opposite Swan and Mercy. They're well groomed, their clothes are ultra clean. They take a good look at Swan and Mercy and vice versa. This is one of Walter Hill's frequent uses of characters mirroring each other. He does that a lot in his other movies too. Earlier, Swan was followed in the train station by a rival gang leader who looks a lot like him facially, and the guy floats after him on roller skates like a ghost or like a Jungian shadow archetype. A dark aspect of Swan that he's trying to shake off. And no, this isn't over-reading. Listen to the ghostly music. And look at how Swan and the Baseball Fury mirror each other in the film's poster. Physical mirroring is even used in the Fury's fight scene. And in the toilet fight, the rival gangs stand with mirrors behind them, and these mirrors get smashed a lot in the fight too. So what's going on here on the train? Well, I'm pretty sure it's something to do with Swan and Mercy seeing versions of themselves as they might have turned out if they were born in more affluent and less troubled circumstances. Like the roller skates character, one of these guys looks like he might have been cast on account of his facial similarities to Swan. Mercy tries to fix her hair to look a bit better, and Swan stops her. He wants these rich couples to see their filthy appearance for what it is, so that they'll count their own blessings. He wants them to see their poverty, their bad luck, their struggles, their pain. Mercy closes her eyes and they leave. It's probably not even their stop, but they want to get away from the class struggle truth that they were just facing. But from Mercy's point of view, she opens her eyes and the couples have disappeared, like they were an illusion. Something else that might be going on here is, given how they were dressed, they look like they might have just attended someone's wedding. The girl in green has a wedding ring on, but the other couple don't. The Swan lookalike guy has his left hand hidden, so we can't see if he has a wedding ring on. I'll assume he does if she's got one. So I wonder if this vision, if you will, might be a hint that Swan and Mercy might one day be married too. Now daylight and truth has finally arrived for the first time in this film. The illusional artificial lights of the night scenes are all switched off. Swan spots the little flower bouquet that one of the affluent couple had dropped. He considers it and gives it to Mercy. It's almost like he's given her a wedding ring. And I like his little double meaning answer.
What's this for?
I just hate seeing anything go to waste.
He's not talking about the flowers, he's talking about her life. He wants her to move on to better things, and the gift is like a declaration of love. Or maybe it's an outright statement of, I'm going to give you my love so that your life doesn't go to waste. How many tough guy movies have the macho hero give a woman flowers? There's not many. But Walter Hill has unconventionally weaved it into the scene in a way that feels genuine, not forced. Swan takes a look at the slums he's lived in all his life and he realises right away, this isn't the place I want to be.
This is what we fought all night to get back to. Maybe I'll just take off.
Maybe I'll just take off? Why the indecision? Because he wants her to take off with him, and he's asking her indirectly. And her answer is a great one.
Well, you know I like traveling too.
How would he know that? Because she spent the night travelling with him. And also the conversation here isn't just about geographical travelling, it's about going mentally and emotionally to new places, leaving behind old habits, sprouting some philosophical wings and taking flight. Walter Hill's deceptive dialogue continues, simple in formal structure, but sophisticated in its implications.
Where have you ever been?
I've never been anywhere. I just know I'd like it.
She's confirming two things, her desire to build a new life and her desire to be his partner for life. He made the offer in so many words, and she accepted in so many words. I've never come across any other filmmaker who can condense dialogue as Walter Hill does while keeping complexity of implication. Great scriptwriter. The Warriors have one last fight with the rogues who committed the murder of Cyrus that they have been blamed for. Swan tries to persuade Mercy to stay out of this fight.
Wait a couple of seconds after we move, then cut out the other way.
Why can't I stay with you?
Just do what I tell you, okay?
I can take care of myself. I proved that.
Come on.
I don't think he's trying to dump her, he just doesn't want her hurt in this fight, but she doesn't want him hurt either, so she's not going anywhere. They're both on the lookout for each other, as any couple should. So they all weapon up, including her and Swan, who now has the switchblade that he took from his own Jungian shadow lookalike in the toilet fight. The fight is over super quick, and the Gramercy Riffs step in to get their revenge on the Rogues gang. Oh god, that must have been nasty. In doing so, they create a little wedding aisle for Swan and Mercy to walk down. Oh, isn't that nice?
Maybe all of you just go on faggot.
Swan and Mercy at the beach, a look of acknowledgement. They're an item now. She's got that smile of happiness. Although he'd probably do well to get her checked out at a clinic before he goes there. He's been stone-faced for most of their journey, but somehow I think he's going to do a lot more smiling from here on. And roll credits, but we're not done yet. First of all, the remaining warriors, except Swan, are on a beach walk, away from the confinement of the city slum. So where are Swan and Mercy? After the night they've all had, they should just be going straight home to get some sleep. But this beach walk shot is symbolic. Previously, Swan, as gang leader, had always walked at the front of his gang, but not anymore. He has quit as a gang leader, and probably he's left the gang completely. Maybe they all have. But I can imagine he would stay friends with some of the rest. Swan and Mercy are now holding hands for the first time, and excuse me a moment while I just wipe away the tears. The shot continues for several minutes, the entire runtime of the credits actually. So why drag the shot out? I mean, they could have just faded to black like most movie credits do. Well, it's because this long beach walk beneath an orange bleached sky is a surrealist continuation of their life story. It represents their future, a more positive future, less violence, more freedom, more happiness. Especially it represents the long, happy life that Swan and Mercy are about to have together. The song, Joe Walsh's In the City, is the film's happiest sounding song, with lyrics referring at first to a horizon, just as we see here, in a movie that almost totally lacked horizons, and the lyrics go on to describe the troubles of poverty and wanting a better life, all appropriate to Swan and Mercy's journey in this film. To finish off, the other 5 warriors jump off what must be a wall or something that we can't see, and they wander off to the right. And this leaves us to freeze frame on Swan and Mercy still bonded for about the last 15 seconds before fade to black. The rest of their happy lives have just been played out as a long beach walk. Now, I think this is one of the greatest cinema love stories ever put on film, and the reasons it virtually never gets the recognition it deserves in that department are twofold. First, because it's perceived as an action film by fans and critics. It's rare that a convincing, heartfelt story makes its way into an action film. But Walter Hill has seamlessly worked it into the narrative here in a way that doesn't spoil the macho action enjoyment. I've known a lot of macho-obsessed viewers who love this film, and I've never heard them complain about the love story element being too soppy or being a distraction. It's like everyone just accepts the love story unconsciously as part of the package. At no point does this love story feel fake or mushy or inconsistent with the gang fight plot. This is even more impressive for the fact that Walter Hill changed the script radically during the shoot to take advantage of the marvellous screen chemistry between Michael Beck and Deborah von Valkenburg. For me, these are both top-tier character performances. Very naturalistic despite the movie's wild premise. And I think the second reason the love story in The Warriors has received so little critical or fan acknowledgement is because it abandons so many of the usual love story cliches. This is a love story set in the dirty, violent slums where neither of the love duo have been able to keep themselves completely wholesome and pure. They've both done things that cast them as deeply flawed or at least troubled people. They both lost their innocence too early in life, and they both felt they had nothing to look forward to. But by meeting each other, initially in psychological conflict, and gradually working out the differences, getting past each other's habitual defences, and agreeing on a new path in life that mutually appeals, they eventually get to that same warm place that any traditional love story tries to get to. Beneath all the pounding rock music, the crazy costumes, and the kiddie play fighting, that's what this film at heart is really about. It's a love story of two lost souls finding their way out of slum life together. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. It's a very different view of The Warriors that you might not have considered before. If you want more transformative film analysis that makes you see your favourite movies, makes you see classic movies in different light, then go head to my website, collativelearning.com. I've got tons of free videos, but I've got even more that are available for digital download. Link is in the video description below. You can also support me on Patreon in order to get more stuff here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. You've been listening to Rob Ager. Bye bye.